Conservative media done right. You're listening to the SHR Media Network.
I'm Jason Miller. Tonight on the Evan Miller Report, President Obama has offered the Iraqi Prime Minister Haider al-Abadi up to $200 million in humanitarian aid. We got the latest on the Iraqi Prime Minister's visit to Washington tonight. Also on tonight's program, Nigeria's President-elect Buhari has vowed today to make every effort to free more than 200 schoolgirls abducted more than a year ago. Russia confirms Iran oil for goods swap, as traders are still skeptical about the deal. This tonight as the UK scrambles RAF jets as Russian planes and ships are spotted in the region. I'm Jason Miller. Corey Evan is off tonight. Also on tonight's program, Wendy Silvers from Million Mamas joins us to talk about her campaign, along with her group, to defeat the vaccination bill in Sacramento. The Evan Miller Report for this Tuesday, April the 14th, 2015, starts right now.
Live from Southern California, this is the Evan Miller Report. Jason Miller with news and politics, Corey Evan with business and entertainment. This is the Evan Miller Report on SHR Media and Public Press Radio. Here now, Jason Miller.
And a very good evening on this Tuesday, April the 14th, 2015. I'm Jason Miller, and I hope those of you joined me earlier today on AM 1360 WNJC. Enjoyed the broadcast today of the Edge of Liberty, as I filled in for Sean Lewis today on the program. We hope you enjoyed that. If you missed the program, don't worry, that's up on Spreaker. Just go to Spreaker.com and search SHR Media via Spreaker. All right, folks, we got a lot of news to get to tonight, including that mandatory vaccine bill being voted on here in the state of California. Wendy Silvers, the head of Million Mamas, will be joining us at 8:15 Eastern, 5:15 Pacific. She is on the road as we speak to Sacramento to try to defeat this bill. But first, ladies and gentlemen, we start off with some international news with national implications. President Obama has offered Iraqi Prime Minister Haider al-Abadi $200 million in humanitarian aid on his first official visit to Washington. Mr. Abadi had been expected to ask for more arms to fight Islamic State militants, but made no request. The humanitarian aid is to help Iraqis displaced by the militants. President Obama said Iraqi troops backed by the U.S.-led coalition had now recovered about one-quarter of the territory in Iraq seized by the group. Iraqi forces are getting better equipped and trained since President Abadi was elected to power 7 months ago, Mr. Obama said. Mr. Abadi said the U.S.-led airstrikes increased arms and training and had helped to push back the likes of Daesh or Islamic State. But he also added, "We want to see more." The Iraqi leader was expected to seek Mr. Obama's help to acquire billions of dollars of advanced U.S. weaponry, including unarmed surveillance drones, attack helicopters, and ammunition. The two leaders also discussed Iran's involvement in battling ISIS, with President Obama stressing the importance of coordinating activities through Iraq. And speak of Iran tonight, Iran making the news tonight tonight, as the Kremlin has confirmed from Russia today that an oil for goods barter deal between Russia and Iran was being implemented. An official said the road was clear for Moscow to supply an advanced S-300 anti-missile system to Tehran. Oil and commodities traders contacted by Reuters and ITN were skeptical the barter deal was underway, saying they had not seen any volumes of Iranian oil or Russian grain connected to such a deal being shipped so far. The latest statements from Moscow coincide with politically sensitive negotiations on a final accord between Iran and the U.S. and the P5+1 nations on Tehran's disputed nuclear program. Russia has moved quickly to cement ties with Iran after an interim deal was reached this month on curbing the Islamic Republic's nuclear program in exchange for removing economic sanctions. Talks will resume on April the 21st of this month with the aim of reaching a final accord by the end of June on June the 30th. Over to Japan, where a Japanese court has blocked the restarting of 2 nuclear reactors in the western city of Tokushima after local people raised safety concerns. The plan has already obtained approval from the country's nuclear watchdog, but locals have petitioned the court in Fukushima Prefecture, where Tokushima is located, to intervene, saying it would not withstand a strong earthquake. All 48 commercial reactors in Japan remain offline following the 2011 Fukushima disaster. According to the BBC's Rupert Winfield-Hayes, who's in the Tokyo bureau for the BBC, he says the ruling is a serious blow for Prime Minister Shinzo Abe's push to have the reactors restarted. Mr. Abe has said the shutdown is damaging the struggling economy and forcing Japan to export expensive fossil fuels to make up the power shortfall. Over to Nigeria now, where their president-elect Muhammad Buhari vowed on Tuesday to make every effort to free more than 200 schoolgirls abducted by Boko Haram militants a year ago, but admitted it was not clear whether they would ever be found. The abduction of the girls from a secondary school in Chibok in the country's northeast last April drew international attention to the humanitarian crisis caused by Boko Haram's attempt to establish a caliphate in the religiously mixed Nigeria, Africa's biggest oil producer. A march is expected in the capital Abuja today to mark the one-year anniversary of the mass kidnapping. Buhari, whose presidential election he won 2 weeks ago, was the first democratic defeat of an incumbent in Africa's biggest economy and the most populous nation, he said his administration would do everything it could to defeat the militant Islam group. Over to Turkey now, where the Turkish president Tayyip Erdogan said he condemned recent comments by Pope Francis over the weekend for comments that the 1915 mass killing of Armenians was genocide, and warned him not to make such a statement again. The Pope became the first head of the Roman Catholic Church to publicly call the killing of as many as 1.5 million Armenians genocide. On Sunday, prompting a diplomatic row with Turkey, which summoned the Vatican's envoy Angry called its own. Muslim Turkey agrees Christian Armenians were killed in clashes with Ottoman soldiers that began on April 15, 1915, when Armenians lived in the empire ruled by Istanbul at the time, but denies hundreds of thousands were killed and that this amounted to genocide. Erdogan said, quote, "We will not allow historical incidents to be taken out of their genuine context and to be used as a fool to campaign against our country," he said in a speech to a business group. He continued, "I condemn the Pope and would like to warn him not to make similar mistakes again." While their Turkish politicians and now Erdogan have lashed out at the Pope, some ordinary Turks have dismissed the row as empty politics and voiced a desire to leave history be. Erdogan's comments are likely to put a focus on whether the U.S., a traditional ally of NATO member Turkey, will eventually use the term genocide for mass killings. Unlike almost 24 European and South American states that use that term, Washington, D.C. avoids it and has warned legislators that Arnica could cut off military cooperation if they voted to adopt it. Pope Francis appeared to refer to his use of the term genocide on Monday, saying in the sermon that today's Christian church's message is one of the path of frankness as the path of Christian courage. And we'll keep you up to date on that story as it becomes available. Over to the UK now, where British fighter jets were scrambled earlier today in response to the sight of 2 Russian military aircraft near UK airspace, hours after 3 Russian ships were monitored as they entered the English Channel. Quick reaction alert Typhoon fighter aircraft from the RAF were launched today after Russian aircraft were identified by flying close to UK airspace, said a Ministry of Defense, or MOD spokesman. The planes were launched from the Lossmouth military airbase in northern Scotland. Britain's Royal Navy earlier kept track of the 3 Russian ships, including a destroyer, after they entered the English Channel, according to the Defense Ministry. It is the latest in a string of similar incidents and comes at a time of tense relations between London and Moscow over the crisis in Ukraine and the inquiry into the death of Russian ex-spy Alexander Litvinenko. David Cameron appeared to target voters who will be decisive in whether the Conservative Tory party can win a majority with his manifesto today. and rather than those in the traditional of the Tory heartlands. Calling on the Tories, the party of working people, Cameron announced a Conservative government will get 1.3 million housing association tenants a right to buy their homes along his pledges. But as the ITV's deputy political editor Chris Shipp reports from rural south in the UK, a Labour-held seat in Merseyside that the Conservatives need to win an election to form a majority, residents seem unconvinced of David Cameron's promises. Here now is Chris Shipp's report.
So David Cameron's pitch today was to those who rent. Promised there were just 500 votes in Wirral South at the last election between the victorious Labour candidate and her Conservative rival. So David Cameron's pitch today was to those who rent, promising tenants of housing associations like this one in Bromborough that the Conservatives can help them realise the dream of owning a home. David Cameron saying today, vote Tory, get a Tory government, you'll be able to buy your own home.
What a load of rubbish, Mr Cameron. You're talking wet. Housing associations are a vital part and they should stay housing associations. Maggie Thatcher did it, and she didn't put all the houses, and now we've got housing associations.
And some of these houses here were bought.
Yeah.
There's one now who's just come out. There's Billy.
Heidi here tells me you bought your own home. Margaret Thatcher's right to buy scheme allowed Billy Taylor to become a homeowner, but he still won't vote Tory. Why is he doing it then? Is it just to try and get sort of the vote of the working man?
Yeah, I think it is. Is
he going to work?
Well, they've been saying it now for the last 5-6 years, Conservatives, but nothing's improved.
For every home sold, the Conservatives promise a replacement. There will be no depletion of the social housing stock, they said. Is it not right to say that the right to buy policy from the 1980s was actually very popular with some people? Some people wanted to buy their own homes.
It was popular, but it was short-sighted, because now we've got a housing crisis that we can't recover from. Where are these people going to live? Where are our children going to live?
From a pledge on how you live to one on how you pay for childcare. David Cameron was trying to score points with parents by doubling government-funded childcare for 3- and 4-year-olds. And at this indoor football centre, Jenny Davin, who has 3 children and 1 on the way,
so it is expensive childcare,
knows all about how much it costs.
It is a help if it comes off. Say we only get 15 hours at the moment and we do get the 30 hours, then yeah.
For those on the minimum wage, a promise today they won't pay income tax. Labour wants an £8 an hour minimum wage. The Tories say on current trends it'll actually be higher. The man who owns and runs this centre isn't entirely sure he can keep up.
I also want to try and reward the staff, who are very good staff, but the reality of it is it going to be too hard for Sokoloko to cope with?
Blue team or red team? The manifestos for the marginals who will decide this election. Chris Shipp, ITV News on the Wirral.
And many thanks to Chris Shipp for that report from the UK tonight. All right, folks, we're going to go ahead, take a break on the program, but when we come back this evening... I apologize, on the program tonight, Wendy Silvers from Million Mamas will be joining us to discuss the mandatory vaccination bill going up to Sacramento tomorrow to be voted on. She joins us in transit to Sacramento when we come back on the Evan Miller Report, your conservative news source. We'll be right back.
Conservative media done right. You're listening to the SHR Media Network.
How you doing? John Grant here. When I'm not slaving over a hot microphone on the 405radio.com Saturdays at 10 a.m. Eastern, I check out Sean and Clint here at Sackheads Radio. We all appreciate the best political bloggers, writers, and commentators. We either get them on our shows or we make fun of them, as it should be. So check us out live Saturdays at 10 a.m. Eastern or forever on the podcasts on the 405radio.com.
This is Tammy Jackson, inviting you to join me on the Tammy Jackson Show every Tuesday night at 7 p.m. Pacific on the 405radio.com. Put down that remote and tune into the show that covers politics, guns and the Second Amendment, religious liberties, sanctity of life, the military, and more. I host newsworthy guests and work hard to be a conservative radio show that's not like all the others. So save Tuesday nights at 7 p.m. Pacific for me, Tammy Jackson, on the 405media.com.
Hello, I'm Paul, a student at Hillsdale College. Here is my professor, Dr. Larry Arnn, on the separation of church and state.
America's founders believed in the separation of church and state, in that the country was not to have an official religion or an official sect. But that did not mean that government was to be hostile to religion, or even indifferent to religion, as many today argue. In fact, America's founding document, the Declaration of Independence, includes both a reference to God as the author of the laws of nature and a confident assertion that human beings are endowed by their Creator with certain inalienable rights. Far from being hostile or indifferent to religion, America's founders understood the theology of the Declaration to be an essential part of the education of citizens.
This Constitution Minute was brought to you by Hillsdale College. To join the national conversation on the Constitution, go to constitutionminute.org.
Hi, this is Rooster from Outcry Radio. Catch me here on Blog Talk Radio every Saturday night at 11 p.m. Eastern Standard Time, or follow my blog. Now, back to the Sackheads.
Conservative media done right. You're listening to the SHR Media Network.
Here's radio.
And welcome back to the Evan Miller Report. I'm Jason Miller. Welcome back to the program. All right, folks, we had Assemblyman Devon Mathis on last week to talk about mandatory vaccinations and the likes of that bill, SB 277, going up to Sacramento. Well, we received information today. That bill will indeed be voted on tomorrow. Wendy Silvers from Million Moms in just a moment. But first, this report from ABC7 in Los Angeles.
Local parents are outraged over plans to sharply limit vaccine waivers for school children. Senate Bill 277 has brought out opponents in droves. They're upset it could ban children who have not been immunized from school. Eyewitness News reporter Miriam Hernandez is live in downtown Los Angeles, where opponents of the bill rallied today. Miriam?
That's right, and these opponents are passionate. Some moms traveled here all the way from Orange County with their children. Their message today was targeted at an LAUSD resolution, but it is clear that they want their voices heard all the way to Sacramento.
We, the parents, have the right.
Choice on vaccination. Parents protesting pending legislation say it's a constitutional issue to access public education without subjecting their children to inoculations. How suspicious are they of pharmaceutical companies and doctors?
With every vaccination, there's a risk of death. And
it says right on the vaccine insert, and normally the doctors don't tell you what the side effects are.
We parents have the right. This crowd from LA and Orange County was mobilized by the group Million Moms, which has already sounded off against SB 277 in Sacramento. The bill aims to eliminate a parent's option to get a vaccination exemption based on personal belief. Public health officials say without closing the loophole, there is a risk of spreading measles and whooping cough in classrooms. Authoring a resolution in support, LAUSD school member Tamar Gallitson.
We've already seen one measles, a number of whooping cough cases in our district. I'm hearing from a lot of medical professionals, especially doctors and nurses, who are telling me how important this is.
Yet these parents believe their evidence is just as compelling. Can you imagine anything that would change your mind?
Nothing, absolutely nothing. If I have to do jail time, God forbid, if I have to homeschool my kids, I would not vaccinate on their schedule.
They face firm resolve in Sacramento, where legislators already passed the bill through the Health Committee unanimously. The Million Moms say they are far from finished. And the LAUSD resolution is expected to pass with little or no opposition As for the moms, many are headed to Sacramento, where tomorrow the Education Committee will vote on AB 277. Reporting live from downtown Los Angeles, Miriam Hernandez, ABC 7 Eyewitness News.
All right, and many thanks to Channel 7 Eyewitness News for providing us that segment there. And joining us now from, and I should state a correction in that LA report, they were calling them Million Moms. It is actually Million Mamas, and joining us now is the head of Million Mamas, Wendy Silvers, and she is currently in transition up into Sacramento for tomorrow's vote, as Channel 7 Eyewitness News in Los Angeles cited. Good evening, Wendy.
Hi there. How are you? Thank you for having me on your show.
I'm great. Thank you for coming on with us last minute. I know I caught you right in the middle of driving up there. I'm sure you weren't expecting a call from us on this, but very good protest out there in Los Angeles today. And not often an organization such as yours can make the news like that. Now, what do you say to government officials? Because it was stated in that report by one government official from the LAUSD, the LA schools, that these vaccinations are important. And she made claims that people were getting measles and other diseases, and that these were of utmost importance, and that if kids didn't get their vaccinations, they would be a public health risk. What do you say to her? What do you say to other officials who state that?
Well, thanks for asking me that. What I would say is that that's not true. That's completely untrue. As a matter of fact, the measles outbreak that occurred in Disneyland, which seemed to signal let's get mandatory vaccinations this bill around the country, was a strain from the Philippines. And that the people that contracted measles from that experience were all vaccinated adults. So there did not exist a vaccination to ward off people touching this. And really what they could have done is quarantined the people from the Philippines or the people that had this, rather than make this a wide sweeping resolution. It's not necessary. It's not necessary. There was a bill that was introduced by Senator Richard Pan called AB 2109 that's working. I mean, the exemptions have decreased, and there's no need for this bill. Like, there's truly no need for this bill. And so that would be my response.
Well, and according to the what Channel 7 stated in their report, the LAUSD will be voting on this bill, and they have. And according to Channel 7, they say there is no opposition, you being the opposition, to this resolution that they have going in the school board. And by the way, the official who stated the fact that that kids need these vaccinations is Tamara Gulliston of the LAUSD school board. I want to be clear for our audience.
Yes, well, what's very interesting is that Tamar is actually running for re-election. And I understand that she really, really wants to win. And so what I really, the inquiry that I have and the invitation that I have is really what's the motivation behind this? Because California has one of the highest vaccination rates. The exemption rates are down. 2109 is working. She really wants to win the re-election. So this is a very hot topic. It would make sense if she wants to win, but ironically, she will lose an enormous amount of votes. So will the other two the LAUSD board members that are up for re-election, should they vote for this bill. But I do believe that there is a political motivation behind this. There is nothing to support that this is needed.
It's amazing to me what a government official will do to win a re-election. And she's now, ladies and gentlemen, and I don't mean to get angry at this, but when you're using children as a political magnet to attract voters, it's just wrong, ladies and gentlemen. That's unmoral. in every essence in the office. And I know, being out of Los Angeles, corruption is nothing new. Same thing goes in the main big three markets. If you're speaking television markets, same thing happens in New York. Same thing happens in Chicago. It even happens in Texas. Rick Perry has on his record, and was questioned on his record when he ran for president, Wendy, on his decision for mandatory vaccinations as well. And it's just disturbing to me, to that effect.
And to us parents, because, one of the things that we encourage our children to believe is that they are the boss of their bodies. And it's their bodies, and that we are going to keep them safe. And this resolution completely dismantles a parent's wisdom about what is in the highest and greatest interest of their children. And there's so much misinformation and propaganda and inaccurate information that has been given, that there's such a high level of fear that doesn't need to be there. There's no unvaccinated child is a risk. There's no risk to another child. That's not even sound science. So what we're talking about is unconstitutional. This is discriminatory. Last week, on the very same day that the Health Committee passed SB 277 through, the Education Committee, including Senator Pan, voted on something called SB 445, which allows homeless children to attend public school without contingency, including but not limited to records or other proof of immunization history. I want all children to be educated. I want all children to have the right to be educated. Our forefathers had the vision that to create and to implement public school, public education is an unalienable right for every child. This is unconstitutional, and it is discriminatory, and it is unnecessary. It's unnecessary.
Yeah, it certainly is. When we had Assemblyman Devon Mathis on, who is in opposition to this bill, obviously on personal reasons, because his two children are special needs. He was on the program last week, speaking in the same things that parents should have this right to have control of what their kids do. Selena Mesa, one of the people in that report that we had on from Los Angeles, you heard in that report the emotion in her voice. She is willing to go to jail to protect her kids from getting these mandatory vaccinations. She is willing even to homeschool her kids for it. And I personally am a homeschool advocate. I was homeschooled when I was a kid, and I personally had a problem with vaccinations by growing up. I got sick on one of the vaccinations, so much so that my mother decided to opt us out of all vaccinations, including my sister, who I won't mention a name just because of security reasons, but that was the trying tale that my mother decided that we aren't going to get vaccinated at all. I don't even get the flu shot, because I believe the flu shot is dangerous. So not only is it dangerous for kids, it is dangerous for adults as well. And I feel for poor people like Selena or Tara Mott, who was also on that newscast, saying, hey, we're against this. And we're willing to go to jail for this. A parent shouldn't have to go to jail for wanting to opt their kid out of what they believe would be something that gets their kid sick. So so what is the government saying? Is the government saying that just because the water looks good and they haven't tested the water that we have to drink the water? I don't think so.
Yeah. Well, I believe that the motivation is coming from big pharma. I think it's coming from political agendas. I think it's not necessarily with the idea of serving the public truly. And so I feel like I just feel like the motivation is not pure. And so that's what happens when you have that. And if you think about Merck and Merck has a monopoly on the vaccinations, and then there's people that are running, and who knows if they want an office. They want to see, either the assembly people that want to have a seat in the Senate, or the senators that want to work for Merck, or they want to work for the CDC, or who knows. But truly, what this what this is with regard to the LAUSD is that it's unconstitutional. It is the right of every child to receive a public education. And they can't pull this little thing out of the hat and think that parents aren't going to react, because they are. And I really want to say something, Eric, that this doesn't need to be a divisive issue, because I believe that every parent loves their child more than anything in the world, for the most part, and they want the best for their children. And so one of my desires is for people to be fully educated. Education is empowerment. And so the information that's out there is tainted, it is biased, it is selective. I want the information to be out there for parents to really see what's going on, so that they don't question and think that it's divisive, because it doesn't need to be divisive. If parents want to vaccinate their children, and they have done all of the research that's out there that is not funded by pharma, that has no relationship to pharma whatsoever, and they decide that the ingredients, if they want to put aluminum and trace amounts of mercury and whatever else are in the vaccine, and they decide that they want to put that in their baby's bodies, then that's fine. But at the same time, those freedoms should be given to parents who want to delay, stagger, or opt out. And that's what this is about. That's what this is really about. Freedoms, civil liberties, and what's constitutional. Either we're going to support the Constitution or we're not.
Wendy, do you consider your organization, Million Mamas, a conservative organization?
No.
Okay, I will even state we may have some disagreements when it comes to probably certain women's issues, especially reproductive rights and issues. But I do believe that there are certain people, including people who spoke in Los Angeles today, we can agree on. This is a bad bill. This is bad. This will harm our children. This is, ladies and gentlemen, this is something where Democrats and Republicans can come together. Doesn't matter what your political domination is. People can come together on this. And this is what people in D.C. have been trying to call bipartisanship. We could be bipartisan on this issue. You know, Wendy, we can disagree on the abortion issue. We can disagree on the likes of feminist rights. We can disagree on all that. But if we can agree on one issue, and this being that one issue, Wendy, my goodness, that's what America's all about. That we can agree to take on a cause when we know that this cause is bad. Go ahead. I didn't mean to interrupt you.
No, I'm cheering you on because that's exactly the perspective that we hold. It's exactly that. And it's really important for people to hear that they can unite on this, that there is the interest of our children and it is the interest of parents. Because if we give up our rights as parents and allow the government to intrude and invade upon our decision-making process in this way, then what is next? Where is it? You know, what they're saying is not factual. And do you know that physicians in the American Medical Association Code of Ethics affirm philosophical and religious exemptions for themselves? So why is it that doctors can opt out but parents can't? Aren't physicians parents?
It almost seems the same debate we were having when they were debating passing Obamacare in Washington, D.C., saying, no, this won't rise the cost of health insurance. No, we won't charge you extra in taxes. But then look at what happened there, Wendy. But certain people who have gotten these discounts for joining the exchange have gotten rises in their taxes. They're not exactly getting the doctor that they prescribed per se. So it's like they're not fully explaining what is happening in this bill. And I will even go as far to say it. politicians are willing to lie. They are willing to lie to get into office, and the same thing goes with that previous LAUSD official, who I'm not going to mention her name again, because you know what? I'm not going to give her any more time on the air than we absolutely have to, Wendy. Because when it comes down to it, the people at the LAUSD, for the most part, I know there's certain teachers out there who are great teachers, I'm sure, in the LAUSD, but the whole organization, the LAUSD being one of the biggest school districts in the nation, they're despicable. They're despicable in not listening to the public, not listening to the voices being heard on this, and have passed numerous bad bills and legislation through their local body. And I will tell folks, I tell this to you ladies and gentlemen all the time. I mentioned this on Sunday on News and Commentary with Dan Butcher. The fight starts locally. When you lose that fight locally, then you start losing it regionally, then you start losing it nationally. And, ladies and gentlemen, if this bill gets passed here in the state of California, as I always say, what happens in the state of California happens to reflect on the rest of the nation.
Well, it's interesting you say.
Thoughts?
My final thoughts are that I want people to hold a vision of a world and of a state, but of a world where this kind of conversation doesn't exist, where there's no made-up, trumped-up ideas that we have to do anything mandatory that impacts a little person's body or removes parental rights. I would love for people to hold that vision and to remember that we want to rise above the whole concept of fight. We don't want to get in there and fight with them, because then we're meeting them at the same level of the consciousness. But I believe that it is possible for us to have a safe and healthy world. And parents know better what their children need than anybody else. So I invite everybody to hold that vision and to know that we can unify on this, and that it's not necessary to have mandatory anything. And that is something that I believe very, very strongly. And I invite everybody else to join me in knowing that.
And where can people meet you tomorrow up in Sacramento if they happen to be up in the Sacramento area? We obviously broadcast out of San Diego, and we get picked up across the nation. But for our listeners in California, Wendy, where can they meet your organization? And I don't often say this, but join Wendy's organization tomorrow. Join the Million Mamas tomorrow in this. You may not agree with them on other issues, but at least agree on this issue. And Wendy, I would advise you on this: meet with Assemblyman Devon Mathis. Call for a meeting with Assemblyman Devon Mathis, and you might be surprised. He may get together with you, and you can work with him on this, on trying to get this decision delayed. Because sometimes the best things to do is not trying to defeat the bill. I've noticed in California politics, but if enough people speak about it, they can delay this thing.
Yes, it's about the parents. It's about when Americans wake up, we shift. When parents wake up, we move mountains. And so the Million Mamas is about the Million Mamas. It's about the Million Papas. It's about the aunties, the uncles, the grandparents. You can go to millionmamasmovement.org for more information. We are on Facebook, and we will be at the West Side Capitol, at the West Steps of the Capitol in Sacramento tomorrow. And I'm so appreciative. Thank you so much for giving me this opportunity to speak with you about this. I'm very appreciative. Thank you.
Well, thank you, Wendy. And as I said, ladies and gentlemen, Wendy and I may not agree on all the issues, but if we can agree on one issue, ladies and gentlemen, that says a lot, ladies and gentlemen, and that's what makes America, America today. I'm Jason Miller. Thank you very much, Wendy, for being with us. We'll be back on the Evan Miller Report with the latest Wall Street numbers on today's closing bell when we return on the Evan Miller Report, your conservative news source. And we'll be right back. Wendy, stay on the line with me, please.
Conservative media done right. You're listening to the SHR Media
How you doing? John Grant here. When I'm not slaving over a hot microphone on the 405radio.com Saturdays at 10 a.m. Eastern, I check out Sean and Clint here at Sackheads Radio. We all appreciate the best political bloggers, writers, and commentators. We either get them on our shows or we make fun of them, as it should be. So check us out live Saturdays at 10 a.m. Eastern or forever on the podcasts on the 405radio.com.
This is Tammy Jackson, inviting you to join me on The Tammy Jackson Show every Tuesday night at 7 p.m. Pacific on the 405radio.com. Put down that remote and tune into the show that covers politics, guns and the Second Amendment, religious liberties, sanctity of life, the military, and more. I host newsworthy guests and work hard to be a conservative radio show that's not like all the others. So save Tuesday nights at 7 p.m. Pacific for me, Tammy Jackson, on the 405media.com.
Hello, I'm Paul, a student at Hillsdale College. Here is my professor, Dr. Larry Arnn, on the separation of church and state.
America's founders believed in the separation of church and state, in that the country was not to have an official religion or an official sect. But that did not mean that government was to be hostile to religion, or even indifferent to religion, as many today argue. In fact, America's founding document, the Declaration of Independence, includes both a reference to God as the author of the laws of nature and a confident assertion that human beings are endowed by their Creator with certain inalienable rights. Far from being hostile or indifferent to religion, America's founders understood the theology of the Declaration to be an essential part of the education of citizens.
This Constitution Minute was brought to you by Hillsdale College. To join the national conversation on the Constitution, go to constitutionminute.org.
Hi, this is Rooster from Outcry Radio. Catch me here on Blog Talk Radio every Saturday night at 11 p.m. Eastern Standard Time, or follow my blog. Now, back to the Sackheads.
Conservative media done right. You're listening to the SHR Media Network.
Here's radio.
Let's get back to the Evan Miller Report on SHR Media and Pundit Press Radio.
And welcome back to the Evan Miller Report. I'm Jason Miller in San Diego. Corey Evan is off tonight. He'll be back on the program on Thursday. Now time for the business news. The the Dow Jones Industrial Average was up 18,036 or 59.66. The Nasdaq was down 4,977 or 10 points. 96, and the S&P 500 was up 2,095 or 3.41 today. Now on to the stock report tonight. U.S. stocks closed mixed today as investors digested the first of major earnings reports and moderate economic data. Stronger oil and J.P. Morgan Chase earnings boosted the Dow Jones Industrial Average and the S&P 500 today. We're getting a bit of bifurcated here, said Art Hogan, chief market strategist at Woolworth Securities. More good news than bad news in this very early start to earnings season. Of the three major indices, only the Nasdaq traded in the red, as Apple and iShares and Nasdaq Biotechnology held lower today. The Russell 2000 also edged lower to close just below recent highs. The market is probably going to waffle here, said Mark Louison, chief investment strategist at Janney Montgomery & Scott. There's no significant bad news, but at the same time, nothing strong from the economic data is suggesting that a catalyst for us to move any higher. Crude oil gained 3% after a forecasted decline in the U.S. shale output and continued tensions in Yemen. The energy sector closed up 1.7% to lead gains in the S&P 500, with only Valero Energy and Consol Energy declining. Chevron and ExxonMobil were among the top blue chip advancers. Energy is helping certainly to push indices higher, said Scott Clemens, chief investment strategist at Brown Brothers Heyman. I would read too much into it. It could all disappear tomorrow. I think it's a trendless market until we get more earnings. A lot of the movement in retail energy stocks is speculation that energy stocks have bottomed, said Lance Roberts, general partner at STA Wealth Management. And that's the latest on your stock report on this Tuesday, April the 14th. Now on to some D.C. news, and if you were listening this morning on WNJC, I highlighted this story this morning about the controversial legislation giving Barack Obama authority to negotiate free trade deals with other countries under special rules, which could begin moving through the U.S. Congress in coming weeks, Republican Senator Orrin Hatch said yesterday. Hatch, who chairs the Senate Finance Committee that oversees trade, told reporters he was continuing to negotiate with the committee's senior Democrat, Senator Ron Wyden, on a bipartisan fast-track trade bill, also known as the Trans-Pacific Partnership, to be considered soon. Fast-track legislation, which would restrict Congress to yes or no votes on trade deals, is seen as a key to sealing the 12-nation Pacific Trade Pact. The legislation under discussion would allow Congress to set negotiating objectives, but faces oppositions from lawmakers worried about the trade's impact on U.S. jobs. And stay with the Evan Miller Report on this story. Joining us on the program for Wednesday's Evan Miller Report will be Kurt Ellis, who is a political communications consultant and writer for WorldNet Daily. He joins us at 8:15 Eastern, 5:15 Pacific tomorrow to discuss the threat of the Trans-Pacific Partnership and what damage it will do to you as a nation. We hope you join us for that. All right, on to more D.C. news. The leader of the U.S. House of Representatives and BS artist John Boehner said it would be virtually impossible for Congress to approve President Obama's proposed authority for use of force against Islamic State militants. In a meeting with a handful of reporters, Speaker Boehner said Obama's proposal for new authority is stalled months after Obama requested a 3-year authority that bans enduring offensive combat operations for U.S. troops. Boehner said it made no sense for Congress to give the president less authority than he already has to combat Islamic extremists who have captured parts of Iraq and Syria. Until the president gets serious, Boehner said, there's no reason to give him less authority. Congress has had held several hearings on Obama's request issued back in February, but authority has languished. Boehner, who also recently led a congressional delegation to the Middle East, says he wants the U.S. forces in Iraq to have a larger role in planning and directing Iraqis trying to combat the Islamic militants in the region. I apologize, ladies and gentlemen. Boehner expressed frustration with the administration's strategy, saying he repeatedly heard 2 questions from U.S. allies: where America's headed, or is the U.S. abandoning us? He echoed the administration's contention that Syrian President Bashar al-Assad has to go after years of civil war. Boehner maintained that Islamic State militants are a more serious concern than Assad. And this coming in late this evening, right before broadcast time, Congress has won its right to have a say, if it wants, on the Obama administration's potential nuclear agreement with Iran. The White House on Tuesday said President Obama would sign compromise legislation, giving Congress the opportunity to review and potentially reject the final deal before any sanctions get weighed. The move diffuses a standoff over a separation of powers that could have led Congress to override a presidential veto on foreign policy legislation for the first time in 3 decades. The Senate Foreign Relations Committee approved the revised legislation this afternoon with strong bipartisan support. It appears likely to pass both chambers of Congress in the next several weeks. All right, ladies and gentlemen, it's now time for the best of lawsuits across America tonight. And I know Corey Evan isn't here. That's why we have the best of tonight's lawsuits across America. And for that, let's go over to Corey Evan.
Thank you, Jason. Ladies and gentlemen, please be seated and come to order. The best of lawsuits across America is now in session.
Universities have a rational reason for segregating students by their biological sex when they use restrooms, showers, locker rooms, and similar facilities, according to a Johnstown federal judge ruling yesterday, in dismissing a transgender man's lawsuit against the University of Pittsburgh. Seamus Johnson identified himself as female when he applied to the university's Johnstown campus. U.S. District Judge Kim Gibson said in his ruling granting the university's motion to dismiss the While Johnson claims in the lawsuit that he is medically a male, he didn't provide any evidence of having undergone sex change, and he didn't follow the university's procedure for having his gender officially changed in his college records, the judge said.
3 Orange County school districts must document that teachers are providing physical education instruction during the school day, according to the terms of a proposed legal settlement. Yet another example of this case. The settlement would resolve a 2013 suit that accused 37 California school districts, including 3 local ones in Orange County, of skimping on state rules mandating that elementary school students receive at least 200 minutes of PE for each 10 days of school. Attorney Donald Driscoll, who sued after noticing his son lacked PE time at his NorCal school, said he filed paperwork Tuesday to settle the lawsuit on the condition that the school districts show proof they're teaching PE. The settlement requirements would only apply to the districts named in the suit. The 3 Orange County school districts are Irvine Unified, Magnolia based in Anaheim, and Ocean View based in Huntington Beach. Because budget cutbacks have been occurring in recent years, many school districts no longer have gym teachers or PE specialists on staff and instead require classroom teachers to handle PE instruction too. Driscoll filed a lawsuit in San Francisco Superior Court after his son attended the Albany Unified School District in NorCal. He said he did not seek status for all California districts because of the difficult legal requirements for class action. But the lawyer said he believes the case will prompt other districts to ensure that PE is taught as mandated by state law. Which to me, Jay, as I mentioned a couple of days ago, sounds like another one of those shakedown sort of lawsuits. It's just going to snowball into something huge. And we don't even get much snow in California unless you live in Big Bear, but that's a totally different story.
Right, this has been the best of lawsuits across America. I'm Corey Evan. Case dismissed.
Corey Evan with tonight's best of lawsuits across America. Thank him very much for that. And Corey, as I stated earlier, will be back on the program on Thursday with the full lawsuits across America and, of course, full bulletin as well when it comes to the business news and the national news as well. So we thank Corey for that and hope he's enjoying his time off on the program. All right, folks, we're going to go ahead and take another short break. When we come back, I will try to make an attempt to do some entertainment news tonight. We'll be right back.
Conservative media done right. You're listening to the SHR Media Network.
There are more than 3 million children in America's child protective and justice systems. Kids who have been abused, neglected, or traumatized. Kids who have begun to act out. The worst situations you can imagine. They've been told repeatedly they're worthless, messed up, or written off completely as a lost cause. For their safety and others, some of these children have to be removed from their homes, separated from their families. They're at the mercy of an overwhelmed system. Every 38 minutes, another troubled child is referred to Youth Villages. Youth Villages believes that no child is a lost cause, not a single one, because a stable, loving family can help any child succeed. And we have an 80% overall success rate that proves doing whatever it takes for children is the only thing that works. If you agree, find out how you can help at youthvillages.org.
And welcome back to the Evan Miller Report. I'm Jason Miller. Now time for the latest on the entertainment news. And I'm just going to do 2 stories tonight, ladies and gentlemen, because, ladies and gentlemen, my own personal opinion, this is Corey Evans type of thing. I'm not really into the entertainment news, but I will do my best, ladies and gentlemen, in his place to do it. Well, Rumor Willis dancing got the whole family back together on Monday night. The oldest daughter of Demi Moore and Bruce Willis is competing, of course, in season 20 of Dancing with the Stars. And during Disney night, Rumor dressed as Ursula from The Little Mermaid. I knew I hated that character for a reason. Her mom, dad, and 2 sisters were in the audience to show their support and snap a selfie as well. Rumor's 21-year-old sister, Talola, Instagrammed the pic of Bruce, Demi, and their 3 girls, hashtagging family portrait, #rare. The 25-year-old contestant's family watched her dance the samba with pro-partner Vitlisha Cherskov to Poor Unfortunate Souls. Demi, 52, Scott, 23, and Talola Willis, 21, sat in front row with their dad, Bruce, who's 60, with his wife, Emma Hemming, 36, behind the girls. The Moore Willis family came on a good night. Werner and Val scored an impressive 39 out of 40 with the 3 perfect 10s. Demi and Bruce were, of course, married from 1987 to 2000. The Die-Hard actor then went on to marry Emma back in 2009, and they have a daughter named Melb. Demi then married former Two and a Half Men actor Ashton Kutcher in 2005 and finalized their divorce back in 2013. Komora Lee Simmons' brood just keeps getting bigger and bigger. According to People magazine, they report that 39-year-old former CEO of Baby Pat and current president and creative director of Just Fab gave birth to a baby boy named Wolfie Lee Lesler with the help of her financier husband, Tim Lesler, 45, on Tuesday. While theirs is the first child for the couple, Simmons is already a seasoned vet when it comes to motherhood. She has 3 other kids from previous relationships, daughters Ming, 15, and Aikai, 12, from her marriage to Russell Simmons, and 5-year-old Kenso from her relationship with Damon Hunstow. Prior to Wolf's arrival, Simmons had been sharing pics of her pregnant belly on Instagram. 3 weeks ago, she posted a photo of herself with Lester en route to the Goldman Sachs partner ball, complete with the hashtag #BabyStillOnBoard. And ladies and gentlemen, that is the Evan Miller Report for this Tuesday, April the 14th, 2015. I'm Jason Miller. Thank you so much for joining me tonight. For Corey, Evan, and all of us here at SHR Media, we thank you for joining us tonight. Coming up next, here is the National Weather Forecast with the BBC Met Office. Until tomorrow, ladies and gentlemen, have a great night.
Hello there. Places like Mobile, Alabama have seen already well over a month's worth of rain in the last couple of days or so. It's been all or nothing, really, across the deep south and the southeast, where these areas of cloud have been producing not just heavy rain and some flash flooding, but some severe thunderstorms as well. And this quarter of the United States remains very wet through the rest of the week. It's drier in the northeast, eastern Canada, a little bit cooler. We've got some dry weather at the moment there across the northern plains, but we are seeing these wetter conditions breaking away from the Rockies, and that could actually reinforce that rain that we've got in the southeast by the end of the week. Some more wetter, windier weather coming into coastal areas of British Columbia, but further south it should be a touch warmer in Washington State and Oregon. For most of California it's dry and sunny, but we could see some late season snow topping up the ski runs there in Utah and also Colorado. A little cooler for eastern Canada, but bright and sunny on Wednesday. So too the northeast of the US. The Midwest is dry as well. More cloud further south. This is the potentially severe weather that we've got around the Gulf Coast and in the southeast. And that rain really adding up through the rest of the week. Could be as much as 300 to 400 millimeters of rain. We'll get rain pushing back into New York as well as Montreal by the end of the week as well. Still rather mixed across Vancouver and across British Columbia, but for many other areas in the west it'll be dry. There'll be some sunshine.
Conservative media done right. You're listening to the SHR Media Network.